and I had 25 years, 4 months as a nonviolent first-time offender for
God.
cannabis and LSD.
How'd you get out at
I
21
mean,
years?
I did 85. I did 85%.
Oh,
I
you
did
did
20. Yeah,
85.
I
Oh,
did. I
wow.
did. Yeah,
Wow.
I did 21 years straight in the feds from 1993 until January 2015.
What's amazing to me is a nonviolent offender, and the taxpayers have to pay for this guy. He's not hurting anybody, he's not kidnapping anybody, he's not killing anybody, he's not fighting anybody, and yet they want us as taxpayers to pay for his food, his room, and board. Doesn't somebody say, okay? I mean, who's paying the bill here? The taxpayers. So let's get this guy. Okay, punish him. Put him away for 2-3 years. We got to punish people for breaking the law. But we're going to put the 21 years of room and board on the taxpayer.
Yeah, they don't care
how much money they spent chasing you down, how much money they spent, investigating you, and then going to trial.
Well, that was
all in. How many millions did we spend on one person? Well, now multiply that by thousands.
Well,
it's crazy.
That's the spirit of the First Step Back, which we'll get into because I want to get your opinion on that. So you serve your time. You stood up. Congratulations on that. I know you can't get the time back, but at the very little.
Congratulations.
No.
Yeah, I know.
No, but I respect.
No, I got people thank me all the time. They like I see people all the time. They thank me for doing that. It's almost like it's like war. It was a war, man. They called it the war on drugs. I was a frontline soldier.
Hold on. Next show, do we know JSP? No, they congratulate him because he stood up 10 toes.
Okay, I'm not accustomed to how you congratulate people.
But what we're getting at is what happened when you got out? Because you obviously wrote White Boy Rick. Want to spend a little bit on that and just walk us through how you got from there to there.
Yeah, well, I went in. I knew I had a lot of time. I was like, what can I do? I got to do something. I got to have a future. I was going to get out like at whatever, in my 40s, early to mid 40s. But my life wasn't over, so I was like, what can I do to make myself a career? And really, the only thing I saw was like writing. Like when you're in there, So when I first got in, my first 2 years, I read like a ton of books, like by prisoners, prison books. I read like all the classics, like In the Belly of the Beast by Jack Henry Abbott, Soledad Brother by George Jackson, Live from Death Row by Mumia Abdul-Jamal, Soul on Ice by Eldridge Cleaver. All these like famous, prison books. I read them. And from doing that my first 2 years, which I was kind of schooling myself on prison by reading these books. But at the same time, I was like, I'm going to write a book about my experience.
Nice.
And so and at the same time, I was taking college classes, not that the feds paid for. The feds didn't pay for them. That my parents paid for them. So I was taking correspondence courses. I got an AA from Penn State. I got a BA from University of Iowa. And I got a master's degree from California State while I was in. Right. So as I'm doing this, I'm taking writing classes, creative writing, journalism, script writing. So, I kind of have this idea. I was fashioning I was kind of reborn as a writer in prison, and I started getting published. I started writing for Vice, man, like in the late 90s.
Oh,
early 2000s.
Prison?
I had a column for Vice called I'm Busted. This was before Vice like blew up. So I used to write for Don Diva, which was, they call it like the Outlaws Bible. They write about all the gangsters. I wrote for Feds.
Voice member, right? No. Or was that Vox?
Not Vice. I know who founded Vice. Yeah, it's not
one of them did. Got it. Keep going, Seth. So you had a column while you're in jail.
Yeah. And I started doing like all true crime stuff. I started doing stuff for Penthouse. I started doing stuff for all these foreign publications like in England and Australia. And I was doing this all from prison because I was like right there with all the criminals. Like I would just interview them. You know what I'm saying? I would find out who wanted to share their story. I started writing about a ton of mob dudes. I wrote a ton of stuff about mob dudes. I would just write stuff like, because I was on the East Coast. I was with so many mob dudes. It was like crazy. Like on my block, there might be like 10 mob dudes.
Yeah. What did Gotti do, Tom? Illinois or Missouri?
Oh yeah, Gotti was in Marion, so Gotti was in the lockdown. I was in like what they call the gladiator school. So I did 12 years in the medium high, and then I did 9 years in the lows. So Gotti was like in the supermax, and then he was in Springfield. That was like the medical.
Yeah. Now we typically, and I believe you checked out the show. A lot of this stuff is OC based. If you give us a little bit what you're comfortable speaking to, who some of the guys you served with, any good stories or anything that you want to share in terms of serving with guys that were LCN.
Yeah, I was with this dude. So I was with Michael Perna.
Oh yeah.
I was with Michael Perna from the New Jersey, Lucchese's. And man, this dude, I'm telling you, man, this dude was
he got fucked.
Yeah. He was on that big Jersey case.
Yeah.
But look, this dude, like when they like the Godfather type mafioso, like that's what the dude Michael Perna. Like this dude was like perfect gentleman, man. Like this dude would give you the shirt off his back. Yeah. I mean, you see all types of dudes, and just like there's mafia dudes that are scumbags that I met in there. You know what I'm saying? But like when you think of like the classic gentleman gangster, that was Michael Perna. I mean, this dude, I'm telling you, this dude, every weekend, I was in Fairton with him for 2 years. I lived on the same block with him.
Yeah.
Every weekend, he would feed 20 guys on Sunday. He would have his guys. Sometimes, I was in the crew with him because I like the prison crew, not on the streets or nothing. I would help him cook the pasta because we all lived on the block. We would chop up the garlic like you see in Goodfellas and stuff. We would make the sauce. And he had all the guys in the block, like 5 of us. We would make the food. And then he would have all the other Italians, from the other things. They would come in and they would eat every weekend. You know what I'm saying? So it was like crazy. And he did this every weekend for 2 years, man. He was feeding like 20 dudes every Sunday. Yeah. And it was cool too, because like, all the blocks, like, I think maybe there was like 5 or 6 TVs there. Like Michael Perna had his own TV. Oh, wow. It was like everybody. They called it the Italian TV. They called it the Italian TV, but it was Michael Perna's TV.
Yeah. But you had your access to your own cookware and to be able to do that. You had
we used to make the pasta in a big 5-gallon bucket with a stinger. You know what a stinger is? It's like, you plug in, it's like metal. They make it metal sometime and it boils water and you plug it in and you put in the water and it boils water. So we make the pasta like that. And then they have like microwaves. We cook the sauce, and so, so that was cool. Like my